Hello and welcome to episode 15 of E30 M3 Recreation. It's been a while since the last episode. Lots of fiddly jobs have been taken care of. Spencer has moved workshops and the E30 is just days away from being trailered to the paint shop. In this episode, we'll catch up with Spencer pre-fitting some vital conversion components and finishing the last bodywork aspects. Plus, we'll take a tour of the new workshop and look at some of the performance components being fitted to this car. If you're not already a subscriber to Carlube, please consider subscribing and browsing the channel. You can have my thanks in advance. When we last saw the E30, you might remember we were removing all the old body undersealer. Gratefully, that mucky business is now complete, so now I'll hand you over to Spencer.
Spencer from BMP Conversions. So as you can see, all the repair work's done that needed to be done. So the shell now is totally solid and the panel work is totally finished. We've obviously been doing a few repairs here and there. Very commonplace, like the footwells you can see have been repaired. There's a couple of areas here where these little pins stick out the floor of the car. Those little pins had rotted away, so just a couple of little rust repairs there. Nothing major. Fletch panels, or flitch panels should I say. Again, repair there and repair there. But the majority of the work is done. The body is complete. So the actual shell of the car is ready to go off for its sandblasting. So you can see that mount is fully fabricated. Was never fitted to the car before, so all this has been spot welded all the way around. I am going to run a seam weld along there, and I'm going to run a seam weld along the back as well. So, but you can see how everything fits now. Where the anti-roll bar used to be, the anti-roll bar position was literally up there and out. So all the way down there and out. So we've totally reversed the anti-roll bar, and the Island Engineering anti-roll bar is the only anti-roll bar which is wide enough between this point and that point to make it back along in the right place for the, pick the strut up. So that's the anti-roll bar position done. You can see the custom-made engine bed is on there. That engine bed is for the 5-stud E30 conversion, so that's the E36 M3 front struts, Evo bottom arms, offset top mounts, and that engine bed, and that moves the steering rack forward 50mm. So that then coincides with the correct position for the lower track rod end ball joint in the strut, because as we all know, when you use the Evo arms, so the Evo arms come up and around there, they actually move forward by 50mm. So the bottom ball joint is moved forward by 50mm. So the whole hub is moved forward by 50mm, and that means that if you run the steering rack in the standard position, where the E30 engine bed would have, which would be 50mm further back, the track rod end would then be going out at an angle from the rack, and the Ackerman angle on the steering would be completely different on hard turning. So one wheel would turn more than the other, and you'd get tyre scrubbage. So this is why when we do a 5-stud big brake M3 conversion on the suspension, you can run this engine bed, and this engine bed then allows you to have the rear loading sump. So we can then run the original E36 M3 sump, which is good because you don't get any oil starvation. It's a twin pickup sump, and that's ideal for the engine. It's designed for the engine. So that's the front setup done. Again, just a quick view of the fabricated engine mounts. So anti-roll bar mounts. You can see I literally just follow on the chassis. So the chassis under this mount just curls up there and comes along. I just do a continuation level from the engine bed point all the way out and up. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Moving to the back of the car, got a lot of surface rust from just standing here, but that's soon to be blasted off. You can see the rear Island Engineering anti-roll bar is done, and that obviously is reinforced through the floor of the car. So this is the original E30 anti-roll bar mount, and you bolt through there, and then there's two extra bolts through the floor of the car. So I'll just go round to the boot. The can see in the boot, you have to drill the floor and put a strengthening plate through the boot of the car. That's exactly why that needed to be fitted before it goes off for the under sealer, sandblasting and paint. And tomorrow we're going to be bolting the rear axle beam on, the diff on, and the E36 twin hanger diff, and then I can make the twin hanger mounts for the rear diff. So the rear axle will be on in place, and the twin hanger diff mounts for the E36 back casing for the medium case diff will be made tomorrow. So it's been a little bit of a gap between last video and this video. We've actually moved premises, which means that we've got a bigger unit, we can take on more work. We've now got all this extra parking. So these rooms that we've built are going to be roofed. We ran out of time, so we've built all 4 walls. But they are going to be roofed and they're going to be sealed. So the engine room will just solely be 4 engines. Nice clean area. So we've actually got a few engines in here now being built. So each engine is at sort of a different stage. That's an S53.2. And then we have another M50 there. We've got an S54 behind me. This is Enz's engine. This is halfway from being built. They were just on the last torque settings on the cylinder head before we start to button that together. But yeah, the engine room will be a clean, tidy environment, and then all the carbon fibre is going to be brought in-house. So this room itself is slightly bigger than the engine room, but the reason for that is that it's actually going to be a carbon fibre room. At the minute it's being used for a bit of storage. I have customers' parts in here, but these will go up on the roof. But this room will primarily be the carbon fibre room. All the carbon fibre parts are going to be brought in-house, and we're going to start making them from resin infusion again. There hasn't been much of a hold-up on Enz's car, it's just been a few little hold-ups. But the majority of the work that's been carried out just recently is the conversion work. So all the work needed to be able to fit an S54 successfully into this car. You can see on the rear chassis I've actually added the twin diff hanger. So it's an E36 medium case backplate diff which has a twin hanger. We're going to run that diff hanger on there. So I've mocked up the whole rear end, put the rear diff mounts on. Also we've done the electric fly-by-wire throttle pedal mount. So that's still the original carpet will fit in there, as well as with no modification, as well as the electronic throttle pedal. Bolted all the pedal box in there, made sure that everything is parallel, the pedals are parallel with each other, and they feel nice. The next thing we've done for the conversion work is the front anti-roll bar mounts. So the front anti-roll bar mounts there, the custom made engine bed. So we mock everything up before we send it off for paint, so we know when it comes back there's no modification needed. The next thing was the servo relocation kit, which moves the servo over, and we also have to move the internal structure over as well, and we fit a smaller servo so that we can run a servo with the S54 plenum chamber without any servo braking system getting in the way. The next thing that we're working on is ABS unit mount. So we're going to be running an E36 ABS unit, which you can see the normal E30 ABS unit would be sat there, and the standard E36 ABS unit would actually be sat over there below this servo. So I want to fit this in the same position that it would run in an E36, so that means a custom made bracket. We're in the process of making that bracket so that everything fits in there nicely. So this block and gearbox is in just to be able to give us a good idea of clearance between the block and the ABS unit, to make sure that we're not going to have anything that clashes or hits as soon as the thing gets put together once it's been painted. We've ground off the original ABS mounts, so the standard E30 ABS mount is gone. We've also took off the coil pack mount, which don't need to be there. The customer sort of specified that they want a nice, fresh, clean bay, so by the time everything is neatly tucked against the bulkhead, the wiring loom would be tucked away nicely in the harness covers, and yeah, the engine bay is going to be quite fresh and quite clean, not much stuff kicking about. There has been a little bit of rust repair, so the main rust repair is the front footwells. which you can see I've actually sort of tried to mimic the original footwell as much as I could. Nearly every E30 I work on nowadays has a rotten footwell, so that little square plate, which is all brand new, all of that is brand new. All this front plate is all brand new, the square plate is brand new, pressed, all welded on and then ground down, so once it's under sealed you won't be able to tell that it wasn't a factory job. So that was that, both sides. Along with the servo relocation kit, which is a plate that you receive off me, which goes behind the servo. You turn it upside down, you weld it on the bulkhead. That brings the servo over by a certain amount of millimeters. You then receive a brand new steel bar inside here, which is longer by that millimeters as well. But then you end up with a gap between the servo mount and the bell housing mount. So it's just a square plate. You can either weld it onto this part and then bolt it through there, or bolt it through all four. So that obviously, this whole unit has been moved over, as well as re-drill these two top holes. Now I drill these out and you can get some rivets, thread rivets, and you can pop them in there and that's job done. You can rethread that M8, perfect. So yeah, that's the sort of conversion work we've been doing over the last few days. That's basically work needed to be done before the paint goes on. So this car's going to be going away for paint in the next, well, this week. I've been doing the brazing, which is one of the last jobs to do. So the very last job to finish this car before it can go for paint is that ABS unit mount and the brazing. So the brazing, I'm I would say three quarters of the way through the brazing. You can see the brand new panel, which is the brand new sill, has now been brazed against the old panel. Same with the brand new rear quarter and brand new sill, fully brazed. And then round to the back panel joint. So the back panel joint, these braze joints, they're not a weld joint. That is basically just to stop water penetrating between the two panel surfaces. So there's no water penetration between these panels now. So there's no way that water can get in there and actually rust in the seams. So that braze joint is done. Like I say, the braze joint itself, that takes quite a lot of work because the braze doesn't go on very nice. You can't put very much heat in these panels before they start to warp and distort. So what you have to do is just put the braze on nice and thick and lumpy, and then just grind it down, file it down and get it smooth. The recess hair, E30s all came out the factory with the recess hair, so obviously you have to put the recess in. But yeah, that's the brazing. There's a little bit more to do on the other side. Once the other side is done, the brazing will be complete probably by tomorrow. This mount also will be complete by tomorrow, so I'm going to be looking possibly Friday to be putting this car on a trailer and send it off for its full sandblasting and then priming with epoxy primer inside and out, and then the guy is going to actually fully underseal the underbody of the car with the 3M 2-pack undersealer, and then once that's done, while that's wet, you get 6 hours sort of work time with the undersealer, and you can put the paint on top of the undersealer while it's wet after 30 minutes of applying it. So you get a wet on wet contact, and then once that's underside is painted, that will be allowed to cure overnight. He's going to flip the car back over to its normal position, paint the inside of the engine bay, paint the inside of the car, paint the inside of the boot. And the car will be back. I will assemble all the suspension, every component on the suspension. You can see all the suspension stuff is sat here waiting patiently. So everything is fully powder coated. All the poly bushes are fitted into the new suspension components. And we've done a nice colour scheme with this suspension components. We've done a Bilstein colour scheme, so to give you some idea, the engine bed you can see is a nice Bilstein blue, and then off that engine bed, the wishbones bolt. The wishbones are the Bilstein yellow, which are basically that colour, and then you have a hub which holds your wheel bearing. The hub is blue itself, so you've got blue, yellow, blue. Then off the hub you have the caliper and the carrier, which are yellow, Bilstein, and the shock absorber itself comes yellow from Bilstein. So there'll be a nice pattern of blue, yellow throughout the whole car, and if you can imagine that against a brand new white painted underside, it's going to be absolutely stunning. The brazing is done on the rear end of the car. The rear quarter joint to the back panel is fully brazed up. So that is brazed all the way down. Same with this corner. This corner is brazed. The brazing's quite difficult to do. I mean, obviously there's going to be a fine art. Someone who's done it all its life would do it perfect straight away, but given the fact that I'm a novice at it, to be quite honest, the brazing needs a bit of fettling after I've done it. So it's a little bit of sanding down and cleaning up, so you end up with a nice sort of V in the metal, so that it looks like a factory joint. But yeah, so the brazing's done on the car. There are a couple of little unfinished brazing joints that need to be fettled. So in the door shuts themselves, both sides. That front one is obviously done completely on the driver's side, but this one needs a little bit more work, and this one needs a little bit more work. But you can see that the original sort of look to the brazing is there. Done the tops of the rear quarter panels themselves, they're finished. So the actual brazing on the front here just needs a little bit more work before I can actually put the primer on it and say I'm happy with it. But that basically is a sealed joint now, so these two panels are spot welded together anyway, but then this brazing stops the water from penetrating into it. So there's going to be stone chip and paint applied over these, but it's just an added protection between the two layers of metal to stop any rust penetrating or rust between the two pieces of metal. Once the brazing's done, tomorrow these nasty speaker holes which someone must have hammered and chiseled in or made a real mess of it anyway. I'm just going to tidy them up, make them look pretty either side. There is another little job inside there. I've got to where the internal pedal box goes on the passenger side. Just got to put a couple of captive threads inside the actual bulkhead itself, because I've moved the servo and internal pedal box over. So that's over further. And there's a little angle iron bracket which I need to make just to fill that gap in down there. So just a little 90-degree angle iron with a couple of spot welds, fill that gap in down there, and the car is ready. So this car will be off very early, first thing Monday, maybe Tuesday, to the blasters. So that's progress on the car. You can see the conversion stuff is done. I just obviously want to be 100%, I want to be 100% that I was sending a complete car to paint, and I don't want to be grinding off any paint to weld something on once it's back.
Last week I had an MOT on my BMW M3. Then today I suddenly noticed the service light indicator was displaying on my iDrive. Well, my car doesn't need a service. This is actually a reminder indicator that the MOT is due. So in this video I will take you through the steps.